Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is JakeTheGenealogist, and in today's video we're going to be going over the family tree of the monarchs of the Kanem-Bornu Empire. Now, the Kanem-Bornu Empire was first founded right here in 784 by this guy, Mais. Now, at its peak it actually stretched from modern-day Cameroon all the way to Chad. Now, he founded the first dynasty of Kanem-Bornu, calling it the Dugua dynasty, named after him. At this point, actually, for all intensive purposes, Kanem-Bornu was pretty much simply known by the Kingdom of Kanem, or the Kanem Empire for some historians. Now, most of the citizens at this time were really just Zagawa nomads who really just kind of moved from place to place around the empire. Now, around this time, a lot of trade started up with northern Africa, specifically Tripoli in modern-day Libya. And through this trans-Saharan trade, the Kingdom of Kanem was actually able to exert its power over the region, actually becoming one of the main hegemonic powers in northwestern Africa. Now, the Dugua dynasty really kind of progressed with power being handed father to son for several hundred years, with Dugu handing it to his son Fune, handing it to his son Arsu, handing it to his son Katuri, handing it to his son Bioma, and so on and so forth, all the way to the end of the dynasty, with that being Mai Abdul Jalil. And after his death, there was no clear successors, so it passed to the very next dynasty right here, Mai Hume, who founded the new Sefawa dynasty right here. And by this time, the kingdom really started to transform into a proper empire, with him actually being the first one to really convert to Islam and settle down and become non-nomadic. Unfortunately, much of their economy at this time was actually powered by the buying and selling of slaves, interestingly enough, many of whom were actually prisoners of war from other conquered kingdoms. That made up the bulk of their economy, but they were actually able to prosper. Now, it really reached its peak by this guy right here, Dunama II Dabalemi, right here. And his very long reign included a lot of diplomatic relations with other sultans in the area, including gifting a giraffe to another ruling dynasty that I actually have on this family tree, the Hafsids dynasty in Tunisia. And he also waged a lot of long, successful wars against other neighboring tribes and kingdoms. And it continued to really kind of prosper after his death through his children and his grandchildren. But by like the 1330s or so, around 100 years later, that's when things start to go a little bit downhill, because they were waging a lot of wars at this time to try to conquer more territory. But at this time, it just really was not working. It was going really quite unsuccessfully, with 4 successive monarchs dying right here due to their war against the So people. And then another 4 monarchs right here dying in succession because of their war with the Bulala people. This kind of really spelled Kanem's downfall, so much so that by 1389, the Bulala actually forced the current Mai Biri II right here to actually move his kingdom southwest to Bornu, which is a region next to Lake Chad. Now, he moved there, establishing the new Bornu Empire, still under the same dynasty. Now, during this time, surprisingly, after a little bit of more turmoil, they were actually given new life to their struggling dynasty when this guy, Ali Ghazi, really kind of defeated all of his rivals, consolidated power, and really made the empire more stable. And by his son, Idris II, Qatar Kamabe, right here. They were actually even able to retake their previous lost land in the Kanem area and even their old capital. Now, the new Bornu Empire peaked really during the reign of this guy, Idris III Aluma, right here, considered by many to be the greatest king. And he reached really new heights in terms of expanding their territory. He's really the Mai, under which, like I said, their empire was actually able to stretch all the way from Cameroon to Chad. And he was able to be a super successful military leader. He conquered Hausaland, which is kind of to the west of where they were originally, and he was able to actually establish relations with Ottoman Sultan Murad III, which is pretty crazy for that time. And he was able to actually really keep the metaphorical boat afloat until really the mid-1600s, when everything really started to go downhill again. Now, by the 1700s, their empire is really wrecked by this famine. However, Bornu was actually able to establish itself as a major center for Islamic education in Africa. Almost every single king since the founding of the Safawa dynasty actually went on a Hajj to Mecca, them being some of the most religious empire, it being like one of the most religious empires in Africa at the time. However, things continued to go downhill. And really, by the 1800s, the early 1800s, a neighboring tribe, the Fulani, were actually able to conquer most of Kanem-Bornu, with the title of Mai remaining only until 1846, with the death of this guy, who was killed in the Civil War, thus ending one of the longest dynasties in world history. Now, the Muslim scholar right here, Muhammad al-Amin al-Kanemi, right here, established the new dynasty, the al-Kanemi dynasty, by 1814, with its capital in Kukawa. And by 1846, after the death of this guy, his son, Umar, was able to actually establish himself as the first Shehu of Bornu, officially. And even though technically the Kanem-Bornu kingdom was still a thing at this point, it was rapidly declining. So by 1893, the warlord Rabi Az-Zubair led a conquest, officially ending the empire and killing quite a few of these monarchs right here. By 1900, he was killed as well, and the monarchy was pretty much allowed to be kept in place, but obviously under weakened control, and it had a lot less power, because it was under the British Protectorate of Nigeria by then. And most of Bornu at that point was under British control, with only a small portion actually being under German rule, due to it being in Cameroon. They were able to do some things. Obviously, at this point, the title of the Shehu of Bornu was really kind of reduced to more of a figurehead position, and it really was a traditional symbol and didn't really mean much more. But after independence from the UK, Nigeria still claims ownership of the Borno region, where the Shehu lives, and technically rules. But, the monarchy is still actually kept in place. The current Shehu actually being this guy, Abu Bakr ibn Umar Garba, who has ruled since 2009. And so it's still alive and prospering, though it was never the force it was all those hundreds of years ago, where it was able to conquer like half of Western Africa, and really become a major powerhouse. Nowadays, it's just a small little autonomous region in Nigeria, but it's definitely still very influential. And so that's about it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to like the video and make sure to subscribe. Because, I'm definitely appreciating that, all the support I've been getting recently. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys all later. Goodbye.